So like, they're a great buy. And then it's the I'll tell you right now about sitting on the West. The stuff the team is not to I think it's pretty
Ready? Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. I think we're ready to start. As most of you probably know, I'm not Kurt Grimmer. Kurt had another meeting to go to, and so I'm filling in for him this morning. We're lucky today to have Ali Bujacich as our guest speaker. Ali is the executive director of PenMet Parks. It's a metropolitan park district that serves 40,000 people in the greater Gig Harbor area. And she's appointed by the Board of Park Commissioners, and I believe we have several here who we'll hear from a little later on this morning. And she acts as the Chief Executive Officer of the district and leads the staff in providing parks and recreation services for all of the people who live in the community. Ali joined PenMet Parks in 2021, and she has previously held positions at the University of Puget Sound, the Gig Harbor Boat Shop, and several other private organizations. Ali is passionate about translating vision into action. You can often hear her say, let's make it happen. Strategic thinking and bringing groups of people together to achieve great things. So, Ali?
Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. Good morning. Thank you, John, for that introduction. Thank you for hosting PenMet Parks this morning. We are very happy to be here again. My name is Ali Bujacich. I'm the executive director for PenMet Parks. We were last here in April, so just about 4 months ago. And during that conversation, we talked about PenMet Parks, who we are as a district. We took a close look at how the district is funded as a metropolitan park district. We talked about initiatives and updates that the district is working on this year, including our parks, recreation, and open space plan. And we talked about capital projects, especially the Community Recreation Center that is currently under development. Today, I'm going to share updates on some of those same plans and initiatives with you. I'm also going to share information about the Parks and Recreation Levy renewal that will be on the ballot this November, as well as provide some brief capital project updates and a little bit of insight into who we are as a district. Before I begin, I want to recognize Park Commissioner that we have with us today, Commissioner Steve Nixon. I'm also joined by my colleagues, Jackie Goodwill and Robin Reedwin. So again, thank you so much for hosting us. So we'll use my arrows, forgive me. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. So I'm going to provide just a little bit of information about who PenMet is as a district. We are a metropolitan park district. We were formed 19 years ago in 2004 when residents voted to establish a metropolitan park district to serve our community. Much has been accomplished over the last 19 years. And today, PenMet Parks manages 650 acres of parkland that's spread across our 50 square mile district, which reaches as far as Maplewood in the north to the southern tip of Fox Island in the south. In these district boundaries, which you will note do not include the city of Gig Harbor, which has its own parks department, or the Key Peninsula, which has its own metropolitan park district, there's about 40,000 people that we serve. We operate 22 parks that are spread over those 650 acres. In those parks, there are 21 miles of trails, playgrounds, beaches, dog parks, forests, playgrounds, fields, courts, and much more. These places are special places. These places are unique places. These places are part of what makes our community us and defines this place we live. We contribute to the vibrancy of this community by providing hundreds of park programs and events every single year that are available to everyone in our community. These programs include services and activities that are enriching, that teach citizenship for all ages, for youth, for seniors, for teens, adults, and for people with special needs. In 2023, PenMet Parks has been very focused on building programs for seniors, for people with disabilities, and for teens, as well as community events. So I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again today, and you'll probably hear me say it again in the future. PenMet Parks is a mission-driven organization. This is our heart and our soul. Our mission, which is to enhance the quality of life by providing parks and recreation opportunities for our community, is at the center of everything we do. It guides our decision-making, the big and the small decisions can be just as significant as the big decisions. It guides our priorities, and we very intentionally do all of our work to advance this mission. Our vision, which was created in partnership with you, this is a community-driven vision, is to be a leader in promoting health and well-being in a thriving community. And I know that vision of a thriving community is something that we all see very clearly in this place where we choose to live, work, and play. And finally, our values: stewardship, responsibility, inspiration, collaboration, and integrity. These principles define how we conduct ourselves, how we interact with each other and with you as we provide parks and recreation services for our community every single day. PenMet Parks is grounded in these mission, vision, and values, all of which are contained in the district's strategic plan. This 5-year strategic plan was adopted earlier this year, and it serves as the roadmap for the direction of PenMet Parks. This strategic plan provides our overarching strategic direction as we move into the future. But the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, which you will hear me refer to as the PROS plan, really serves as the physical manifestation of our strategic plan. This PROS plan provides specific and actionable recommendations to continue developing a comprehensive park and recreation system that is responsive to our community's needs. We talked about this PROS plan about 4 months ago when I was here in April. And at that time, we were right in the middle of our community engagement phase. Really, one of the most important parts of the PROS plan is learning from you what matters to you so we can form our services to meet your needs. So I'm going to share just a little bit of insight into the community engagement that we did as part of this PROS plan. The full survey, the full engagement summary is available on PenMet Parks websites. I'm going to share a tiny snippet today, but I want to describe the process to you. This spring, over 900 people responded to a statistically valid survey, which combined with forums, stakeholder meetings, interviews, in-person comments, a socially interactive website, and other feedback has provided these really critical insights into your priorities for Parks and Rec. These few examples that I'm going to share today illustrate some of the data that we collected. We asked questions like, how important are these park facilities to you? And how well do you think PenMet Parks and the other local service providers in our community are doing to currently meet the needs of our community? This gives us insight into community priorities community needs and priorities. This gap analysis tells us where we need to focus over the next 6 years. We are focused on filling these gaps. We learned through this process, and again, I've shared a brief snippet here. The full results are available on the PenMet Parks website, and I encourage you to dive into them. There's a lot of data there. But we learned that amenities like hiking and walking trails, beach access, regional parks, picnic shelters, playgrounds, These are of high importance to our community. We learned that you want more programs for youth, for adults and seniors. And we learned that the main reasons that our community visits a park is to spend time with family and friends, to use a playground, and to be close to nature. These are just some of the information data points that we pulled out of this process. So back in April, I encouraged you to get involved with the PROS plan, and you did. And I am very thankful for that. Again, your feedback is the basis of this plan. Once again, I'm going to invite you to get involved. The PROS plan process is coming to an end. The final plan will be presented the last week of September, on September 26th, and everyone in our community is invited to attend to listen to these final draft recommendations during a board study session. Your comment is invited at a future board meeting when the board considers adopting this plan, or via PenMet Park's website. Reach out to us and contact us, but we want to hear your input on these recommendations. This PROS plan is expected to be finalized and adopted in October, and we look forward to sharing this final plan with you. So when I was here in April, we took a look at how PenMet Parks is funded as a metropolitan park district. We talked about junior taxing district. We talked about funding sources and structure. Today, I'm going to share information with you about the upcoming levy renewal. This November, PenMet Parks residents will vote on a renewal of the district's park and recreation levy. This renews the same levy that voters approved in 2017 that is expiring this year. Levy funds make up over 80% of PenMet Park's annual budget, and they're required to provide clean, safe, well-maintained parks and high-quality community programs like the ones that we've discussed this morning. When our community formed PenMet Parks almost 20 years ago in 2004, citizens voted to tax themselves at a rate of 75 cents per $1,000 in assessed property value. Voters approved this rate again in 2017 when they passed a 6-year levy lid lift. This lid lift expires this year. Since 2017, the levy rate has eroded from 75 cents to 58 cents, again, per $1,000 in assessed value. This levy restores the same rate that was previously approved in 2004 and again in 2017. You might recall from our conversation in April that PenMet Parks, like all metropolitan park districts, is heavily dependent on levy funding. The levy amount that PenMet Parks collects is limited each year by the state constitution. PenMet Parks also imposes a limit on annual levy amounts. Our levy rate has fluctuated, and as you can see in this graph, over the years, there have been peaks and valleys. The low valley is a result of the 2008 recession. At that time, the levy rate for PenMet Parks was about 26 cents, and a peak, which represents the levy that voters approved in 2017, when the rate was restored to 75 cents. So levy funds would be used to maintain adequate funding to continue to provide clean, safe parks that are well maintained, these special places that we've discussed this morning, as well as to provide high quality programs for everyone in our community. These programs are part of what bring together community, what build community, and what contribute to our thriving community. Levy funds would also be used to provide new, additional park and recreation services that our community has requested, especially access to more parks, trails, and beaches, more programs, and new recreation opportunities across the district.
Working on that deal, but there a bond issue as well, or still
There is not a bond issue. This is a levy renewal only.
so the bond issue is actually gets up there. I see the signs.
It is not a PenMet Parks bond. Thank you. The question was, is there a bond issue for PenMet Parks? And the answer is no. Thank you. All right, so levy funds would be used to provide these parks and recreation services that our community has requested. PenMet Parks is not mandated by federal or state requirements to meet certain standards or priorities. Our priorities, the services that we provide, the way we spend our funds are guided by you, by community input. And these are the priorities that levy funds would advance. This levy provides adequate funding for park operations, maintenance, and programming. This levy is required for the district to continue providing services at the same level that it does today. Our annual budget, which includes operations, maintenance, programs, and capital improvements, is all dependent on this levy funding. Smaller amounts funding sources for our budget include sources like sales tax, park impact fees, and real estate excise tax. But aside from project-specific grants, PenMet Parks does not receive typically state or federal funding. We are using these local dollars to advance these local priorities. This levy adequately funds a maturing park district. As we've discussed, PenMet Parks is a young district, less than 20 years old. And it requires sufficient funding to provide comprehensive park and recreation services for our community. PenMet Parks, in a very short period of time, in the last 19 years, has made significant progress toward a comprehensive park and recreation system. We own 22 parks and properties. We provide hundreds of community programs. However, we today lag behind our peer agencies in several key metrics, including spending per capita, spending per acre, staffing levels and key staff, such as maintenance staff, park maintenance staff, and other areas, in capital investments, especially prior to 2017. Of the 16 park amenities that are commonly tracked on a national level, these are amenities like playgrounds, sport courts, fields. Of the 16 categories, PenMet Parks provides less amenities per person in almost every category, in 12 of the 16 categories, than the national median. We have made gains. We have made significant gains, but as a young district, we are still developing along with our community. Levy funds would advance that development and continue that trajectory. This levy provides more access to trails, beaches, and parks. We know, we've collected the data, we've listened to our community, that our citizens prioritize trails, forests, saltwater shoreline, and park amenities like playgrounds, courts, fields, and picnic shelters. This levy would support improving properties that PenMet Parks already owns to create more hiking, walking, and biking trails at places like McCormick Forest, adjacent to Rotary Bark Park, improving waterfront properties that the district already owns, like Bujacich Estuary, or the Sedrona Bay Boat Launch on Fox Island, to provide more public beach access, and to provide more of these amenities that our community values district-wide to create more recreation opportunities. The levy provides more programs for everyone, for people of all ages and abilities. We know that citizens have requested more programs, especially for youth, adults, and seniors. We have seen the gap analysis, we reviewed the data, we've listened again to you. Levy funds would support more programs for people of all ages and abilities, including those categories. The levy would also support programs that our community has said should be funded partially or wholly by tax dollars. Those are programs like free community events, programs like Scarecrow Festival, movies in the park, concerts in the park, the spring egg hunt, youth sports, youth camps, senior activities, and programs for people with special needs. Those are all programs that are supported by levy dollars. And this levy creates new recreation opportunities throughout the district. PenMet Parks is developing a comprehensive park and recreation system to serve our community. This system is responsive to community needs. We've drawn the connection between what our community needs, where the gaps are, and how PenMet Parks provides those services. The district has strategically acquired 22 parks and properties over its 19-year lifespan, many of which are undeveloped or underdeveloped. This map represents recreation opportunities in our district, in our community. The darker the gradient, the more access people have to recreation opportunities. As you can see on this map, residents in some areas of the district have less access to parks, especially in places like the north region of the district, the Purdy, Crescent Valley area, east to Colvos Passage, the Artendale area, and parts of Fox Island. The levy would support improving properties that PenMet Parks already owns in these areas to provide more equitable access to parks and recreation in our community, consistent with the priorities set by citizens. This is at properties that like Peninsula Gardens in Artendale or Maplewood, which is in the north region of the district on Colvos Passage. So more details on this levy. This is the same levy that was approved by voters in 2017 and the same rate that was approved by voters in 2004 and again in 2017. The 2017 levy is expiring this year, and this levy that voters will consider this November would renew the levy that is expiring. It would restore the rate to 75 cents and it would maintain annual increases of up to 6%, never to exceed the 75-cent rate for 6 more years. The levy is estimated to renew or to generate about $17.7 million of funding over that 6-year time period. And if the levy is not renewed, PenMet Parks' budget would remain relatively flat because it is so dependent on levy funding in that same time period. As rising operational costs outpace a flat budget, parks and recreation services that we provide for our community would necessarily be reduced. So I want to take a look back and talk about how PenMet Parks has leveraged levy funds from 2017 to provide more parks and recreation access for our community. So a little bit of a project update here. This 2017 levy provided about $15.5 million of funding, and PenMet Parks has used those funds to advance our community's priorities and the commitments that we made to citizens in 2017. So some examples include providing more programs for all ages, especially programs for seniors. In 2023, PenMet Parks is on track to provide 11 times more senior programming than it did in 2022. This is a significant area of focus for the district. We'll be providing over 4,000 participant hours of senior programming this year. More programming for people with special needs. PenMet Parks has established dedicated staff to provide programs to serve people with special needs in our communities to fill a gap in services. Programs for youth, for adults, and community events. PenMet Parks acquired 75 acres of land adjacent to McCormick Forest for conservation purposes and to provide more trail access. This is where Rotary Bark Park is today. Providing new lights and a new synthetic or replaced new synthetic turf at the Zamel Homestead Park multi-purpose field. These projects dramatically increased the availability of these spaces. The lights are allowing people to use this field outside of our limited daylight hours, especially in the fall and winter. Provided a safer, more playable, more usable surface, and this is a very well-used field. Completed the renovation of the historic Arletta Schoolhouse. This renovation was completed last year. We took a facility, a historic facility that has meaning for our community. We maintained the historic character while replacing age systems, addressing deferred maintenance, and ensuring that this asset can be used not just by us, but by the people that come behind us. We provided more access to saltwater beaches. We've done this at places like the Tacoma Demolay Sand Spit, which is currently the subject of a master plan, as well as implementing the highest priorities from that master plan that is in progress right now, as well as more access to the water at the Fox Island Fishing Pier. You will see ADA accessibility upgrades planned at that facility and funded at that facility this year. We've extended, or we are extending, excuse me, the Cushman Trail about a half a mile from its current southern terminus south to very close to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. This is a very important section of this trail because it brings us so much closer to connecting our trail system to the Scott Pearson Trail and the regional trail system beyond. I will provide a little bit more of an update on the next two projects here in just a moment, but renovating Rosedale Hall and developing the Indoor Community Recreation Center. These are all projects that are supported by levy funds, and these are all projects that are in the place they are because of the levy the voters approved in 2017. If the 2017 levy was not approved, just to provide some context, PenMet Park's levy rate today would be 32 cents, not 58 cents. And our annual budget today would be reduced by about 40% of what it is. So many of these services and programs that we're providing for our community today would not have been feasible. So shifting into a little closer look at a couple of these projects, beginning with the Rosedale Hall renovation. This is Rosedale Hall. It is a community treasure and a facility that has is something that we want to preserve, but it has older systems. It has little accessibility. It is not ADA accessible. So we are investing funds into renovating this building. And I briefly touched on this a few months ago when I was with you. This project, very similar to the Arletta Schoolhouse renovation, will focus on maintaining the character of this building. It's been in our community for decades, while replacing systems that are beyond their useful life. Structural upgrades, accessibility upgrades. This project is getting closer. When I was last year, design was underway. Design is now complete. Permits are in hand. We are expecting to award the construction contract in the next week or so. This facility will be taken offline for the renovation beginning this month, and it is expected to open back up to the community, looking much the same, but built to last in time for summer 2024. Another project I want to take just a closer look at is feasibility studies. So PenMet Parks is currently conducting two separate feasibility studies. These are being conducted in parallel with each other. The first study is looking at a dedicated space for seniors. The second study is looking at a community aquatic center. Both of these studies are being completed in response to community need. Our community has come to PenMet Parks and asked for these facilities. So as a first step, we are collecting data to inform what our community need is and what the viability of not just building, but operating these facilities are. When complete, these studies will provide those data-driven recommendations that will allow our community to determine next steps. And the studies are anticipated to be complete here in the coming months. And last project update is on the Community Recreation Center, the CRC. When I met with you earlier this year, I shared that the design was complete, the permitting was underway, and that we had hoped to begin construction this summer. We have, and I am sharing a time-lapse video with you. So I'm very happy to report that this project, the construction contract was awarded in July. It was awarded to Jody Miller Construction. This is a firm that built Ocean 5 here in our community, the South Tacoma Community Center, and other relevant projects. Work began that month. The construction of this project is expected to take just a little over a year. So in late 2024, we plan to open this facility for our community. As a reminder, this is about a 65,000 square foot indoor recreation facility that will serve everyone in our community with amenities like an indoor turf field, multi-purpose gym space, walking track. It includes the extension of the Cushman Trail and community spaces. Really looking forward to opening that up to you. All right. That concludes the information I wanted to share with you today. I'm happy to take Q&A.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kelly. And let's start with Daryl here.
Ellie, I got lost somewhere, and when you were talking about the levy, kind of putting away all the cents or assessed value of the house or of real estate. What would it mean to your budget in real dollars, like next year, if the levy did not pass versus if it did?
Thank you. That's a great question. If the levy does not pass, our 2024 budget is actually projected to dip just a little bit from 2023. The reason behind that is some of the minor funding sources that PenMet Parks receives are received on a biennial basis. But over 6 years, the budget would be pretty flat. If the levy does pass, the budget would increase by about $2.5 million in 2024.
Okay, thank you. Are the payments for the Rosedale Hall or for the new facility dependent on passage of the excess property tax levy?
That's a great question. So the funding for the Community Recreation Center the Community Recreation Center is partially funded by a bond. So there is some debt obligation for the Community Recreation Center. Fulfilling that debt obligation is not dependent on the levy. That was forecast and budgeted within PenMet Park's existing operating budget. That bond was entirely within PenMet Park's current operating structure. The operation costs for the Community Recreation Center are also not dependent on the levy. That center over time, over 3 years, is anticipated to be almost 100% self-sustaining. There are no debt payments, no debt required for the Rosedale Hall renovation. That is within PenMet Park's annual budget and certainly supported by the 2017 levy.
Okay, another question.
Another money question for you.
Great.
Gig Harbor, you said Gig Harbor residents of the city do not participate in paying for PenMet Parks, right? And conversely, those of us that live in PenMet Parks area don't pay for city parks. But we use city parks, I'm assuming, free of charge, and they use PenMet Parks free of charge. Do you know how that nets out? Kind of that you have a lot of people using park facilities that don't pay for them.
Sure, that's a great question. PenMet Parks we're not able to track the visitors that come to every park facility and where they live. We don't have that data. That's not something we can feasibly collect. Our mission is to enhance the quality of life by providing parks and recreation opportunities for our community. With that, though, our commitment first and foremost to the taxpayers of the district. But I don't have the data on how that would actually net out in dollars and cents.
Okay, Steve.
The 650 acres and 22 parks, is there anything that have been accumulated? Or as a result of the studies, are there any of those properties that might be deemed surplus and could be sold?
That's a great question. So one of the really in-depth analysis that was conducted as part of the PROS study is access to parks and looking at the distribution of parks across the district. The national standard for access to parks is a 10-minute walk from a residence. Because of the nature of our district, that's probably not going to be feasible anytime in the near future. So we looked at establishing different level of service standards. And what we're looking at is providing access for every resident to a high quality park with at least 4 park amenities. And a park amenity could be something like a trail, a playground, a beach, a picnic shelter within 3 miles of their homes. That's the level of service standard that is we aspire to. We are not there yet. There are areas of the district that don't meet that standard. Because of that distribution of parks, there are parks that are more concentrated in some areas, but we also look at the distribution of those amenities on a district-wide basis, how we provide that. So the short answer is no properties are recommended for surplus at this time.
So just this is a follow-up to that. You, in your presentation, you mentioned some of the kind of like per capita ratios.
Yep.
I've asked this of fire and police before. My question would be, how do you know in these 16 different peer group in cities, say St. Joe, Missouri? I mean, how do you know, say, similar population? How do you know that you are right sized, that you have too many acres are not enough, or too many parks are not enough, or too big a staff are not enough? Where do you get your data, and how do you know these things?
That's a great question. It is, we get that data from a combination of places. The 2 primary places are information that's available through public information about peer districts. So when we talk about peer districts, we are looking at districts that are serve a similar size population, that have a similar size budget, and other factors like that. There is national data that's collected. These are data points that establish, for example, how many residents a field should serve. So that's on a national level. But we have to couple that with our specific community information, and that's where the input comes in. So we are marrying that up, these known data points, with our community feedback to establish a plan that works specifically for our district. This is not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. This is data that we have to keep in mind along with our community specific needs. So we're using a couple of different sources to benchmark that.
Thank you. Many years ago when I used to work, there was no park ranger, and there was the city park department that pretty much had responsibility for everything that existed. Now there's rough parity in terms of number of facilities, not necessarily acreage, but number of facilities between the district and the city parks department. The city does water, sewer, street, storm, police service, court service, and parks acquisition and maintenance, but it doesn't do any programming. You have recently done programming. How many budgetary dollars a year do you allocate to parks programming? And is there a way that you could cooperate with the city to make that extended?
That's a great question. So our programming budget is roughly $1 million a year. And this is round numbers. In 2022, we provided between 400 and 500 programs that served about 6,000 people, registered people, plus thousands more people at free community events. We studied our programs in depth this year. We conducted a fees and services assessment, gave us a lot of insight into our programs, how we serve our community. PenMet Parks' approach is not to duplicate services, but to collaborate and to fill gaps. We are looking at the way that the programs serve district residents and serve our community. We learned through that process that there's opportunities for partnerships. There's also gaps that need to be filled. So that information actually was one of the platforms of the pros plan. We conducted the fees and services assessment first, so we could build on that and provide recreation recommendations in our pros plan. The other thing I'll add to that is one of the recommendations from the fees and services assessment was to establish a pricing policy that provides really consistent, objective criteria to develop pricing for programs, because many of the programs are fee-based. Some, which we talked about in this earlier, are also funded through taxes, either part of the program or the whole program. So that pricing policy is something that PenMet Parks has been working on over the last few months, and the board will be reviewing the proposed policy on September 19th at the next board meeting. That addresses, that pricing policy does address a fee structure for district residents and out of district residents.
Again, financial question. I get it.
Well, oh,
We'll catch you in a minute.
I have a financial question on the, what I'm concerned about in the levy left tax increase. Is the kind of removing the cap 101% and going to 106%. And that's a 600% increase. And what's happened during the last 6 years is my house has doubled in assessed value. And so now there's this new basis from, you've gone from 75 cents to 58 cents, but you're on an assessed value that's doubled. And then during the next 6 years. So I think it's more of a concern than a question is, would you like to comment on that and address that? Because I think the 17.7 or 17.8 million can actually quite likely escalate to about 24 million. So comments.
Sure. So PenMet Parks, of course, does not have any control over assessed values. I can share with you that the assessed valuation for 2024, well, let me back up. The 17.7 million is based on an assumption. It's a forecast. It's something that's outside of PenMet Parks' control, that assessed values will increase at about 2.5% a year for the next 6 years. There's going to be different factors that influence that. We know that the property values in our district increased 1.1% between 2023 and 2024. The other, I suppose, thing I would add is the 6% limit is the maximum, and PenMet Parks can and does review its financial resources required to advance community priorities every year, and will continue to do that. PenMet Parks is not obligated to collect the full 6%. So if those resources are not required, PenMet Parks would make that decision at that time.
Okay, thank you.
So why ask for 75 cents if you haven't determined how much you need?
So I want to make, we have determined how much we need, and 75 cents is what, and I apologize if I'm misunderstanding this question. So we know that we need, that 75 cents is the rate required to adequately fund a metropolitan park district.
75 cents the total amount that you can request as an excess property tax levy,
Yes,
and you intend to use it all,
yes.
but you said that you might not need to.
It will be assessed on an annual basis. So in 2020, PenMet Parks can choose, is not required to collect the full amount of the levy every year. And that's regardless of whether the levy is renewed or not. That's on an ongoing basis. So as PenMet Parks assesses its financial requirements to provide parks and recreation services, it's not required to collect the full 6% or the full amount of the levy, regardless of the rate.
That's part of the equation. Well, I'm sorry.
That's part of the equation of the formula that you are in control of, and staff recommendations to the board, and the board will vote each year
Yes.
as to whether or not to take the full increase up to the
Absolutely.
106% cap,
Correct.
which is a very significant, very substantial tax increase. So anyway, I just wanted to end that.
That's correct. So you're, as part of the annual budget process, staff recommends to the board what the levy amount should be up to the limit.
So in the last couple of presentations that I've been at that you've done for this, you've identified that one of the lagging indicators on previous spending has been maintenance of the parks, right? And so we've identified some of those resolutions. And then you've, in your pros plan, you've given, I think it's 50 or whatever, like priority projects and kind of how you want to fund those. But on the top of those are growth things as opposed to maintenance things like the CRC and stuff like that. So previously, maybe it was April, maybe it was a little bit after that, you identified that if the levy limit was not successful, then as you said today, it just kind of flattens the budget, but the biggest impact is only going to be the rate of completion of your whatever 50 projects, right? So if it doesn't pass, and I'm not in favor of the levy limit, by the way, what is your plan for focusing on maintenance as opposed to growth?
Sure. So if the levy is not renewed, as you said, the budget will be largely flat, relatively flat. The capital improvement plan that's required to the capital improvement plan to improve parks, to maintain parks and assets will slow. It will be affected. PenMet Parks will evaluate its financial requirements on a regular basis to determine how to strategically provide the services that are prioritized by our community within the available resources.
Okay, thank you.
Another financial question, Ally. How do you balance, or how does the board balance the request that the community says it wants, and your comparisons to other park districts? You said spending was below, or what was being provided was below what other comparable districts had, versus what people are willing to pay for it. Because it seems to me there's always that pushback from people that don't want any increases in taxes, in spite of the fact there's inflation and the like, and there's a long list of requests by what the community says it wants. How do the conversations go in balancing that?
So we always go back to the data when we prioritize our spending decisions. The pros plan, and we're right in the middle of renewing the pros plan, but the pros plan, the strategic plan, the feedback that we get from residents is what guides our spending. We are balancing competing priorities within a limited budgetary framework, and that is that's just part of what we do as a park district. So I think, to me, what that underscores is the importance of community involvement with plans like this pros plan, because that guides spending.
Okay, do we have any additional questions?
I'm Ray, I'm from Fox Island, Sally knows. It's been a while since I looked at the operating budget, but security is going to become a bigger issue. We've experienced it on Fox Island. We've had to employ after duty deputies out there. And how do you handle your security today?
That's a great question. How do we handle our security today? The district has identified a district-wide security master plan as a priority. That's is funded in our capital budget, and it's something that the district is advancing. That is the physical infrastructure, things like key system, security systems, gates, physical security measures. In addition, our staff, PenMet Parks' responsibility is to have a presence at parks. We're there. Providing safe and secure parks is something that our community expects from us. So as an on-site presence, we are monitoring for that and working with appropriate agencies if there are security issues.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question.
Well, let me just ask one thing. Going back to your security, do you deal with the sheriff's department as well?
We do work with the sheriff's department, yes.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Ally, for a very informative presentation, and thank you all for being here. We have a number of things going on in the community these days. It seems like a very busy fall. We've got an open studio tour coming up. Tina, would you like to say something about that?
I brought some brochures if people don't.
Why don't you come up here? Yeah.
Try not to get tangled up in this octopus. The open studio tour is this weekend. I brought a few brochures if you don't have one. There are 36 artists that are participating this year, which is the largest participation. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, so it should be a lot of fun. So help yourself to the brochures.
Okay, as long as you're up here, why don't you talk about the Veterans Appreciation Luncheon, which is coming up on November 11th?
Okay. This is the sixth annual luncheon that's provided for veterans in our community. Every year, the planning focuses on one war event, although all veterans are invited and encouraged to attend. This year, the area of focus is the Vietnam era. We have some amazing speakers. We are currently trying to find as many Vietnam veterans in the area as we can. If you know someone, if you are someone in that era, please try to attend. We've got some cards up here with a QR code that you can use to register. The cost for veterans is $0. Those accompanying veterans or people wanting to just come and experience the event, it's a $15 full Thanksgiving dinner, and it's out at the Antique Air Museum.
Okay, thank you. And as long as you're up here, would you like to say something about the film festival?
It's a very busy fall. The film festival is next weekend. I did bring a few brochures if you don't have one. It's 3 days of really excellent movies. Some are full length, some are shorts. We have 64 films this year. As of yesterday, there are over 95 filmmakers coming to Gig Harbor who will be there to talk about their films. So it's a wonderful experience. Some of the films are a little quirky. Most of them are fabulous. Even the quirky ones are fabulous. But there's something for everyone. So come out to Uptown to the Galaxy Theater and join the fun.
Okay. Thank you. Steve, do you have anything to add? I think Ally pretty much said it all. Yeah. Miriam, can we get a chamber update?
So we're pretty excited to do an event at a location for Public Affairs Forum. I want you to mark your calendars for October 5th. We're going to go to Latitude 47. If you recall, a few years ago when we were coming out of COVID, we had an event that we did there. And so that we can see kind of a tour of that facility as well. They have approached us to like come for that morning, but we will need to know a head count. So we do encourage you to go on and register. It's a free event, but go to the chamber website and register for it so that we can tell them, because there's going to be some catering involved, and we want to be able to give them a good head count for that. And Latitude 47 is over by the Purdy Prison in that large warehouse district. So they do have a couple of buildings available to tour. So it'll be a really good morning to do that. So October 5th. Then For the remainder of October, it will be election season and we will be doing candidate forums. And candidate forums, if you recall, we're going to be using the cafeteria, far side of the cafeteria, and setting up in there. So that will be for the remainder of the October season. So, and then after, I want to say back in November, we'll come back into this location. So I wanted to give you a heads up. And John, no, you cannot have that chair. You cannot have that chair over in the, I know that's your chair, hun. And so, but you will not have it over there. It stays in this room. Yeah, they're going to be doing a meal kind of a situation. Anyway, so that's kind of the updates for us, and we're looking forward to the annual luncheon, which is our annual meeting, where we do kind of a report out of what we've accomplished in 2023. And so that will be the October luncheon. So first Thursday of the month. We enjoy having everybody there. There's going to be a really good meal served, isn't there, for the October luncheon? It's going to be a chili feed by Barbecue to You, some of that yummy cowboy chili they have. So if you like chili and cornbread, you're going to be in for a real treat. So we do invite you to register for that as well. Katie, have I forgotten anything? The ribbon cutting, yes, we have a ribbon cutting this afternoon at 3:30, correct? On the time at Best Choice Real Estate. It's over by Morso. So if you have no other plans, go have, come to the ribbon cutting and then go over and have a glass of wine over at Morso and enjoy their deck because it's going to be gorgeous this afternoon. Anyway, next week we are having a speaker and we'll let you know who it is because it's down between possibly the city or Commander Hood. So we're going to have somebody excellent for you. We just, still wrestling through a couple of logistics. So so stay tuned. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here.
Just get up and be here.
Always.
Okay, we'll see you all next week.
You should have lied.